So what's going on, Renee? How's your week?
My week's been busy. It's been super
Me
busy.
too.
Yeah, things have
Me
been
too.
at the shop happening.
Major busy. Good evening, everybody. This is Sal and Renee. Welcome to Betwixt the Shadows.
And Voodoo.
And Voodoo. Yeah, so as you see, we are actually on here tonight. We're going to be doing this way until we get through the COVID situation, just to be supportive and do the right thing. And we hope you all are doing the same as well. So tonight we get some cool stuff going on. This week has been a little crazy. Had a really bad experience. Our dog passed away this week. This Friday, we lost Annie after 12 and a half years. My wife had her, and we lost her on Friday at 6 o'clock. So we love her and we miss her. And I'm sure a lot of people at the Crooked Path are missing her already. And just wanted to put some blessings and love out to Annie.
Yeah, I want to dedicate the episode to her. I didn't know if you were going to want to bring it up, so I didn't say anything, but.
No, it's okay. It's better to talk about it. Just say that, it's just, it really makes you realize how magical they are and how important she was to the store and to myself and my wife. It's really hard, but I definitely don't want to put the focus on it because we've got so much to talk about, but I just wanted to clear the air with that and let everybody know that's where I was. And sorry if I was vacant through the weekend. That's what we were dealing with. And blessings to my wife and Annie.
Yeah.
So other than that, I came into work and I got 4 private clients back-to-back spells that I've got to do over the next 4 days. So it's crazy busy. But how are you?
Yeah, the same. I had a ton of people book readings all at once. Like I had a week that was so slow, I was almost worried. And then it was like everything came at once. And then I had an astrology deadline thrown on me over the weekend, which is like, just strike when the iron's hot. Like after a famine, after a week of like slow business, when everything kicks up, it's like I only have I have to pick it all up,
Sure.
But I feel like my brain has been like scattered or something, or like a little like malfunctiony. Like I keep typing things in incorrectly on my phone. And I called the mailbox the laundry box, and like just like weird, stupid, like brain snafus. But I feel like that was part of the eclipse that happened last week, the lunar eclipse in Gemini.
Just my life.
We have another eclipse coming up. I feel like we can just get into sort of like the astrology aspect of things. We have on the new moon on December 14th, we have a solar eclipse. And this one is happening in Sagittarius. And Mercury is conjunct the sun and the moon, and it's forming a trine to Mars. And so to actually explain that in a way that makes sense, this is kind of going to be about like putting action behind your words, putting action behind your thoughts, putting action behind like what you aspire to be and what you want to do. Because it's, because the energy is in Sagittarius and it's a fire sign, you may feel a fluctuation in your energy levels. Eclipses are kind of notorious for that anyway, where people tend to feel fatigued or exhausted. I feel like my energy levels have been really wonky lately, and that's going to continue through probably the next couple of weeks, just because that eclipse energy is really draining. But ultimately, you should be feeling pretty invigorated about your goals and about your creative projects. There is a little bit of a harsh aspect between
Renee, I need to interrupt you. There's some pounding going on at your house or something because it's picking up right here. I can hear it really loud.
My guinea pigs, they're drinking water. They just stopped though. Hold on. Let me do something about it.
Sorry about that, guys. Just wanted to make it so everybody could hear. Gotta love the guinea pigs.
Okay. I had to give them they have two different water dispensers, so I had to take away the loud one. They can get it from the other one. But where was I? Oh yeah, so with this eclipse, people who actually put the hard work into their goals are going to manifest, and the people who sort of fantasize and talk a big game but don't necessarily take action are going to be the ones who just like continue to fall flat and not have things really manifest for them. So responsibility will be a key factor in working this energy correctly. We have a conjunction happening between Jupiter and Saturn, which is not the great conjunction, but it is the same type of conjunction. The great conjunction that everyone's talking about is happening in the sign of Aquarius. And that's when Saturn and Jupiter conjunct and they become so close to each other. It's actually the closest that they've been to each other since 1226, the year.
I heard that it's going to be really bright. It's going to be a very bright star. People are going to think, but it's actually the planet's light together.
Yeah,
that's amazing. 800 years, I said, in the making.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's happening actually on the solstice. That's happening the 21st.
Oh, yeah.
And that same kind of aspect is happening astrologically on this new moon, but it's in a different sign. It's in Capricorn. So this is kind of like your last chance to like get responsible, take care of your business, plot your points when it comes to the things that you want to get done and the things you want to create. And then when that conjunction happens again in Aquarius, if you've done that groundwork, then things will become really big and really great and really beautiful for you. So it's like a hard work combined with passion and drive and the things that you want to achieve. Like those are the things that you should be working with on this new moon. And that's what you should probably put your intentions toward, to work that energy more productively.
Great. Sounds good. I'm actually excited for it. I'm not really big on a lot of that, watching a lot of that stuff, but that's going to be very beautiful, especially for Yule, for winter solstice. That's going to be absolutely amazing.
I know. And yeah, I think on that day you can see it like right before dawn.
Wow. That is really cool.
I know. Cool. I'm excited for that.
So nothing else on my end. I know we got a cool topic tonight that we're going to be discussing. But tonight we're going to be discussing altars and shrines and the difference. Yeah. I put a couple of pics up on the Instagram of like 3 different ones at my home, so people could just see some different workspaces. Yeah. And I wanted to use them for examples. And also, since we're talking about it, I thought maybe I would go over some of the basic tools on the witch's altar as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be lovely to talk about, especially because like, there are different ways that you can represent sort of like those tools. Like if we're looking at like your chalice, your sword, your wand, and your, pentacle, what is the proper term for that? Because I just think of it as like the pentacle.
We do. I've got our first question. I'm just looking at it, but I will address that right now before we get into this. So yeah, we get a lot of questions popping up, and I will attach the question from the Shadow Crew. We got 2, I think. But you're talking about the tile. So usually in witchcraft, we have what's called the tile, or the paten is the ceremonial magical term for it. And the paten or tile, I like to explain to students, is the epicenter of your altar. And that specifically, pentacle is the concrete image of the 5-pointed star. It's a tangible, touchable image, whether it be wearing on a necklace or on a ring or on your shirt embossed, or the object itself is called a pentacle. Okay. But sometimes you'll see them and they won't be 5-pointed stars. Sometimes they'll be hexagrams. Sometimes they'll be the strophalos, or another type of mandala or image that you're going to be using for that type of work. And I'll elaborate on that more. Do you want to go ahead and do some questions first, or you want to just talk about altars and shrines straight out and then go to the questions?
I feel like we can bounce around a little bit. Most of the questions that we had sent in were about altars. I guess really quick, I think, let's see. Do you want to get the ones that don't have to do with altars out of the way really quick?
Sure. Why don't we do that, and then we will focus the rest of the night on altars. There's a lot to talk about. So
there's so much.
There is.
Yeah.
So let's hit those first questions first.
Okay. So this one I feel like we've answered before, but I'm never against a good review. Someone asked, what would Sal recommend as a good offering for Hikate?
Always awesome. For those people that are not specifically against animal product, I would definitely suggest feta cheese, chicken livers, chicken hearts. In some situations, I've seen people use raw meat. You can also use lots of honey, lots of eggs. Hard-boiled are really great. For people that don't want to be messing with animal product, definitely garlic is really good. Almonds are really good. Pomegranates are great. Seasonal fruit is really good. What my instructor is what taught us, a great way to represent yourself as well geographically is to find what is very common growing in the time of year that you're giving the working to her, and say, like, take a sprigs of pine, lay them down, and then lay the offering right on the ground. So that's a really great way of connecting to her. Also, incense is really good to burn with that.
Pine.
Wine libations. Well, I was being hypothetical about that. Like, if you're back east and you're in the winter, pine represents the woods. So just use pine branches. Here we could use whatever you find growing wild, laying that down. It just kind of represents it geographically.
Got it.
No matter where you are in the world. I get an itchy nose. I'm sorry. Cool. So what is the next question?
So this one was actually one that I think that we weren't able to get to last week when we covered sympathetic magic. This one's from Susan. She says, I'm excited to hear your thoughts on sympathetic magic and was wondering if you could talk a little bit about using menstrual fluid in spellcraft. Is there a best practice for period blood and magic? Thanks in advance and have a great week.
I'll let you go first on that if you want.
If you're going to use it for sympathetic magic, you would probably need someone else's period blood, which that could be like,
Not necessarily. You could use your own because it's sympathetic to you.
Right. I guess that's true.
Yeah, you could use your own to represent you.
The times that I've used period blood, and I totally have, like, and if you have a diva cup, that's perfect. I'll dress candles with it a lot of the time just to like add some extra fucking essence to it.
Juice makes sense. No pun intended.
Yeah. And like, if like, I feel like I have some that I put on my altar as an offering. Like sometimes I'll just dump it, like, here you go. But I noticed that if you allow it to dry out,
it'll grow scent really bad too.
Well, not if you let it dry out like in an open, well ventilated space. But if you put it in a jar and you open it a couple of days later, it's rank. I use rank period blood in like protection jars because it's nasty. But if like I'm using fresh, it's to dress candles. But if you let it just sit out in a well ventilated place, it'll sort of like dry up and like it's almost like, I don't know, like the consistency of a scab or something, but you can like
crust it and then you could powder it.
Yes, so that's what I do. Like, to just like so I dry it and I use it to like top dress candles.
Smart. That's really witchy. That's really a great thing that you just said. That's probably my favorite thing you've said on witchcraft. Yes, that was really well done.
Good.
Really well done. Really great questions. Yeah. But definitely sympathetic. You can use it in sympathetic magic, definitely to represent yourself. And if you use somebody else's blood, then obviously that's got to represent them, whether it's menstrual or not. To me, I get the essence because it deals with the lunar phases, which is great. But I mean, at the very least, if you get blood, that's great, or saliva, or semen, or excretion of the body is definitely for sympathetic work.
I think that period blood is also really good for any sort of spell to like release or banish, just because you're shedding the wall of your uterus when you're on your period, and so that's your body actually shedding and releasing and getting rid of stuff. So you could also put that intention behind it, I think, too.
Was that the only two?
Those were the only two that we got that didn't have to do with altars or shrines.
All right, we've got a lot of stuff popping up here, so we got some questions to answer, and I really want to get everybody's answer tonight. So I think probably let's talk about shrines and altars.
Okay.
Do you want to start? You want me to?
I mean, I know that you were actually the one who explained to me the difference between a shrine and an altar. An altar is where you do the work. The shrine is sort of like where you build something to respect your deity or the powers that you work with.
Yes, and that is very much it. I posted pictures on Instagram to promote this for tonight. And what you got to see, there's a small shrine to Hikate and her triformous perspective with jewelry and stones and stuff. So this is where I consecrate all my jewelry that I wear. And there's stones that work with certain energies to represent her. God, I'm having a hard time tonight. But the shrine has a tea light, and I light that every night before I go to bed. It's definitely a place of dedication. Your altar is definitely different in it. It's a workspace. It gets dirty. It gets really, used. And that's the whole point of that, is to have a place to work. Now, on the altars, you obviously want to have some form, if you work with a deity and you use them as a point of reference for the work or going through them to get the work done, then by all means have your deity represented on your altar. But with that, there are certain tools. Now, I'm going to tell you about some specific tools. This by no means, this is what you have to get. This is just one way of looking at it. Okay. Altars are a high point. They're a place of reverence. They're also a place that you are going to get your spellcraft done, especially in witchcraft. And some of the more known objects that you have actually will represent the elements that they're governed by. Traditionally in witchcraft and in some aspects of Wicca, your tools are elementally correlated. And then if you really want to get anal retentive, like some Virgos, you will actually set them up accordingly. I can tell you, first of all, that when I look at an altar space, it's split right down the middle. The left half is the feminine. The right half is the masculine. The left half, and the reason I'm getting this and where it comes from me, and I'm sorry if I'm talking a lot because I don't want to cut you off. I'm just trying to give you guys a lot of information. So interject if you need to. But when I say that, the reason that I see it that way, it's because when I'm looking at the altar, I'm looking at it from a Kabbalistic, Hermetic perspective as well. And the left side would be severity, or the black pillar, and mercy would be the masculine, or the right pillar. And you can start separating things gender-wise there by having the feminine and masculine, or the god and goddess in those positions. And then down below that, you'll have your elemental tools. So if you have your pattern that we discussed a little bit ago, that is very much an aspect of the earth.
Right, okay. Which is feminine.
Yes.
Feminine and
but that sits dead center. But it's dead center in the altar, because it's the center point of your work. Your pattern or your pentacle is actually ground zero for spellcraft. Anything that you want to consecrate, banish, anything that you want to empower, anything you want to curse, anything you want to hex, anything you want to do, any work at all, it goes on the pentacle because it's a point of power for you. Okay, that's why consecration of all these things should be really taking place separately, so they're all ready to go. So that would be earth. The second one you would be looking at would be the cup. The cup is obvious. It's also feminine. Now, when you think of that, it's very much like female. It holds the liquid, the elixir of life, or water. Okay, so that's your water element. Now, the athame or athame or witch's blade or atam, people have a lot of names for it, but whatever you want to call it, the witch's blade is traditionally a double-sided blade, not single-sided. It's sharp on both sides, and it's traditionally, it doesn't have to be, but it's traditionally black hilted. And the reason it's black hilted is, it's Saturnian, it's got a power point to it, but it also elementally is one of the few tools that is dual element. It is air and it is fire. It is fire in that it's aggressive. It is air in that it moves through it and cuts the air. The only thing that an athame or a ritual blade should be used for is to cut air and direct energy. It's a lot like a wand, but from an aggressive standpoint of defense or enforce. That's where your athames are coming into play, or your witch's blade. The reason it's edged is no matter which way you move, you're cutting.
I feel like when I'm thinking of blades, I look at it as like, even if it is sort of like pushing forward like a wand or something, like it seems to me more of an intellectual, because I affiliate it with air more so than fire, because the wand is fire and air is your mind.
See, this is where it gets tricky though. Wand is fire and you're going with tarot readings. But when you get in the craft, you're going to find that those two are opposing. They're flipped. So wand is purely an air element.
Interesting.
In witchcraft and in Wicca specifically, the wand is an air tool. And it moves through the air. But you use the wand for a gesture of respect and grace, and you use it to request in energy. But where you pick up the athame, you're demanding that energy. So if you're working with Dijin or lower entities that you need to control, this is where the athame would come in, because the wand would be like, oh, really? No.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's where that comes in. And so now you've got the athame, you've got the wand. Okay. So you can fire, air, water, and earth. So those are your basic tools. Now, other than that, you've got an array of things that will be going on the altar. You'll have a thurible. The thurible is the incense burner. Okay, that is going to represent air, even though it holds fire, because in the end, the incense is the smoke, right? Exactly.
And the candle is the flame, which is
the candle is the flame, and that's where you have the black and the white. And then you usually have the skull. The skull is actually dual element as well. It's earth and spirit. The spirit is like the fifth element, and it's the spirit of those past. And the skull to a witch in witchcraft and on altars, it's a sign of those that have passed before you. It doesn't have to do with your blood relatives necessarily, but all the witches that came before you. It's a lineage of witchcraft, and it's a lineage of connecting yourself to the witchcraft ancestry and really communing with that aspect. Right. So that's a big one. Another one you often see on the altar is the cingulum. The cingulum is the witch's cord, and it's usually a traditional length, and it traditionally is about 9 feet in length and has various knots in it. And at one end, the cord is looped, and you wear it around your waist. When you take it off, you put it in the center of a dirt ground, and you pierce it with a stick or something, or your Bolene, which is another tool, and you stretch it out, and you'll draw a circle that will hold 13 people. Hence, in 9 foot, it'll be 9 feet on each side. Oh. The Bolene, I'm sorry, go ahead. Do you have a question?
Well, yeah, I'm curious if that's necessary for like a solitary practitioner.
Well, that's what the knots are there for, because the knots measure singular space. So you trace to the knot, and that will make a solo circle. That's why the knots sit there. They're knotted specifically to know different measurements for different people. It's also the cingulum also is used as a sign of rank, or where you stand in the coven, or in the group of witches.
Is there a color specification or material specification?
That will depend on the deity structure that you work with, or your coven and how it was formed, and the colors that you choose as a group to use. The Bolene is the other one I was talking about, and the Bolene is the tool that we use. It's the tool that you have on your altar to do all the things that an athame can't do. So if you need to cut a candle, if you need to mark something, if you need to cut bread, if you need to prick your skin, anything like that to bring up blood, this is the Bolene. It's a single-sided blade, and it's usually white-handled, just to delineate the two so you don't mix them up when you're grabbing them in a darker room. And then you usually see bells. Bells create battery, which is, again, the air element.
Yeah. See, that's like all the bells and whistles, because usually I just try to do a nod to all the elements and to spirit, and sometimes it'll be a feather or an incense or stones that have a specific affiliation with the different elements. That's one that I always recommend to people who don't want to have a full-blown altar, like people who want to like be a little bit more under the radar, just to get like a stone with each of the elements.
Well, yeah, you can do that, or and then I usually tell people to get 4 elemental candle colors, and whatever you choose to be the room, when you turn it into your bedroom, you I think I discussed this before. You either want the altar in the north or the northeast, the quarter point between the two. And that is usually traditionally also where we enter and exit the circle. And so that all layers and becomes the structure. So obviously people have bedrooms, they have apartments. We live in Los Angeles, we live in small units, and sometimes people don't have that. So we want to create, and I'm in the midst of creating, by the way, there'll be an altar kit on sale to Crooked Path very soon. And it's got everything in it, so you can take it all out and it'll be ready to set up. Perfect. Yeah. So this is, and then you can put it all back in, slide it away, and it no longer exists.
That's what I did when I was like 13 and I was practicing like from my Scott Cunningham book when I was little. I had like a footstool, but it had a part that flipped up, and there was like and that's where I hid all my shit, so that like I wouldn't get yelled at from my mom for being a witch. But that's totally where I had all my stuff.
Yeah, that's what you can do. So, don't stress if you can't get your altar in a space, or the altar can't stay up. Ideally, if you have a space in your house that is a den that you can turn into your magical room, then by all means, this is where you don't have to worry about calling. So in witchcraft, when you come in, you go to your altar, you're going to consecrate the space with all 4 elements. You're going to call in your quarters. You're going to call in the guardians. You're going to bring down your deity structure if you have them. There's a certain layout that you do, a format. But when you have a dedicated space in your home, you can just walk in and activate without having to do that over and over. So the altar is permanently set up.
Yeah. And I have I think I've got 4 different variations of either altar or shrine. I guess I really only have 2 shrines, 2 altars kind of thing. But I'm curious what you think about, because I have my own office, and this is like the room I'm in right now.
Looks like Prince's office.
I know, isn't it great?
Awesome.
This is a painting my friend did of me holding my guinea pig.
I can see it.
Yep. So anyway, I just wanted everyone to enjoy that for a second. But yeah, I know. I'm like, so when I do readings, I have to take this down because I can't be like, here's my ass. Like for this, it felt fine. But this is the room that I do readings in and meditation and magic. But not much else happens in here, but I get ready in here. Like I do my makeup in here, and my clothes are in here. So I'm curious, because I definitely feel like this is the most warded area that I have in my house. But when I'm doing a ritual, I still call the corners every time. Like if I'm doing like a full-blown spell, I still call the corners every time. And I'm curious if you think that's necessary, because I do use this, as my dressing room and my spiritual room.
I mean, I personally, because you're not my student, you're my friend, and I don't pass judgment on any of that. And I think whatever you do is great. And I believe that. I believe we all have our way of doing things. But if traditionally, if you were to ask me, should I do this every time because of that? I'd say yes, because there's sometimes when you go in there and it's not that, or somebody goes in the room that's not part of that. Like,
so just keep going for it then.
I would keep doing it for sure.
Okay.
For sure. That's really important. So tools are really important. And a lot of people ask me, are tools really important? Yes, they're super important. Just like clothing is really important. I use this as an example, and it sometimes comes off sounding stupid, but my point is there. is Superman is not Superman when he's Clark Kent.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, he can't be Superman without Superman's costume. Okay, he can have the thoughts, but everything comes off that.
He has to make that transition.
Yeah, so that transition. So when you have an outfit, wear it over and over. Always have one simple thing that you wear, or maybe if you work skyclad is another way for saying naked.
Yeah.
If you work skyclad, that's fine. If you have magic panties, wear them. You know what I mean? Whatever works. But if you want to do that, I also am, and you can ask my students this because I'm very anal about it, especially in temple, bare feet.
Yeah,
I want to see feet on the ground, not other things. And it's kind of ironic with that because in the Golden Dawn, you have to wear red socks specifically. But, the altar in ceremonial magic is much more minimal than in witchcraft. In that we have the double cube altar, which is specific dimensions and perfectly square and perfectly cubed, but it's like two cubes sitting on one on top of the other. And that has basically like 3 or 4 small products on there, like one candlestick, the paten, the blade that you're using, and maybe a chalice and a stick of incense. And that is their altars are always in the east, unless it's another specific type of working. It's generally you're facing east because that's where the sun comes up, i.e. the Golden Dawn. But tools are important. They help you get into a space. Now that doesn't mean you have to go to the Crooked Path or any of the other stores and buy your equipment. I was telling a little girl the other day that had a budget and she bought her stuff and she's like, I'll come back when you get this cup. I'm like, go to a thrift store. You're going to find amazing things for $5 in thrift stores. I believe in it.
You can get a big ass bag of taper candles for and use that instead of buying like a 7-day. You can get a bag of like 20 taper candles for $5 at a thrift store. Not even get like a 7-day candle for $5 at most occult shops. But I also think that when it comes to tools, I look at it almost like it's a placebo effect, where it's like you don't know necessarily if it's the tool that's working or if you're like making your brain believe something's working, but because you're believing in something, you're manifesting. You know what I mean? You don't ever really know if it's the tool that is making the thing happen, but it's the tool that's triggering something in your mind that's creating the belief, that's creating the manifestation.
But that tool is just working off your psyche, and it's your manifestation anyways.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. We have a bunch of questions coming in here, and we should probably start hitting them. I'm going to go ahead and look at the text. Give me a second. Where is the text? I'm so lame with this stuff. Sorry, guys. Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to start at the top. Edgar Rodriguez, sorry, is the last one we've got so far. So I'm going to go to the top and start from there. Mm-hmm. Why does wardrobe matter during ritual? We discussed this, but it definitely puts you in a magical state of mind, especially when you start getting into planetary magic. Have different lamens or different pieces that you wear that represent the planet that you're working in. Same with altar cloths.
So I have a question for you based off of my practice. I don't have I have a robe, but I never work with it. And I don't ever have a specific outfit that I wear when I'm doing, when I'm casting, but I will always take a shower and I will always dress myself with essential oils. And I feel like dressing myself is sort of like my process versus a robe. Do you think that that's the same, or do you think it's different?
Well, as long as are you going in skyclad? Or are you wearing something?
I'm wearing something.
The sexy part of me would say go skyclad, but
not every time.
Even if it is one thing, I would rather not see someone go in there in sweats unless those sweats were bought just for that reason and then put away. Because if the minute you put it on and wear it for anything other than that one reason, then I have a problem with it. If it's one thing dedicated, then that's okay. Even if it's just a bathrobe. If that bathrobe is put away and used just for ritual, I think it's great.
Yeah, I guess if you saw a priest try to give a sermon in his street clothes, you'd be like, what the fuck?
Yeah. So that's where I go on that. Jose asks, how about wine and ritual? Well, how about why not? Wine is great, but again, people that know me know I don't drink alcohol. That doesn't mean the gods don't. I always give Hikate wine, Greek wine specifically, and we usually always have it in circle. And it's important. I think wine is really important. But if you're in a sober environment, then have grape juice, have sparkling cider, but have something fruitful. You know what I mean?
Alcohol is like a big part of my practice anyway, though, just because I leave wine out as an offering all the time. But also if I am doing a ritual and I'm using wine, I will have some as well. Like I'm having a drink with the powers that I'm working with.
Yeah. I always instill in my students too, when you usually have two chalices. You have one for the altar and then one that you bring to coven events or group events, because you want to have one that's not glass that can fall and won't break, because they'll always fall when you're in circle, and especially when you have your downtime in ritual after your work is done. People want to stay in the magical space and then enjoy drink and food. And if that's the case, you should have something that's not breakable for your food and drink. And with that, one of the rules is never let a cup go dry. You always want, when you see you're at the bottom of the cup, top it off. Keep topping it off, and top off your other people in the room with you. Never show an empty cup. It's an insult to the gods.
So how do you know when to when does
just let it be full, and then whatever you leave, when rituals end, ideally there should be stuff in the bottom of your cup. Then you offer that to the trees or out by plants outside.
So do you have a separate cup to put your offering in as well, or is the offering just whatever?
No, we pour it down to the ground.
Just whatever's left over.
Yeah, we put it all together and then we pour it into the earth.
See, I have a separate, I'll pour a separate glass for whoever I'm communicating with.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. That's an offering specifically, sure.
Yeah.
The deity should have that. Like Hikate has her own cup at my altar. Yeah. But it just shows that you will never thirst and you will never hunger in the group that you're in or with other people. You want to show that you'll always be there. It's just a way of showing gesture to your fellow magicians and witches.
Do you think it's okay to drink from that cup if it's supposed to be we're sharing in this moment together, if it's a commune, or does it need to be just for the deity?
Well, there should be a cup just for the deity.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. And of course, in these times specifically, we're not meeting anyways, but we should always be practicing having our own cups, and not splitting off. I mean, in days past, I've definitely had one cup that went around from the high priestess and we all sipped. And even if we didn't drink the wine, some of us didn't drink, we'd let it hit our lips as a gesture,
But then would you put that cup on the altar?
Yeah, you can have that around. That would be the high priestess, but that still wouldn't be the deity's cup.
Okay.
It's separate.
Got it.
So we got, regarding this sounds like a question for you for sure. 773 asks, regarding the winter solstice conjunction, I feel there's a lot of powerful energy coming in. Is there any particular rituals that will have extra power, and are there any rituals to avoid at this time?
Yeah. Okay. So hold on. I have the chart here. With that conjunction, a lot of it is going to be about artistic pursuits, and being creative and innovative. One thing that you might want to watch out for is there's a little bit of a square between Mercury, the sun, and the moon. So you can sometimes have confusion around communication with that sort of an aspect. So I would make sure that you are really clear about what you're trying to manifest and what your intentions are, just because there's just some sloppy energy around actually conveying what we want. But I think that because it's happening, that actual conjunction is happening in Aquarius, which is sort of the artist of the zodiac. Anything that you want, any sort of change that you want to manifest, because Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, which is the planet of change. It's going to be around that, like change that you want to manifest and speaking to exactly what it is that you want to change and exactly what it is that you want to bring in. So be specific and be also like, the thing is, like, if you're asking for any sort of manifestation or you're asking for any sort of a change, like you have to be willing to back it up with like changing yourself and doing the work. So, I mean, if you're going to try to manifest more money, then you have to be willing to step up and work your ass off, because you're probably going to get hit really hard with a lot to do at once. So thinking about your ritual, planning it out, knowing what you want, you know, communicating it clearly, and then being ready for the work, because it could probably happen in a very unexpected way. And if you're not willing to put the work in, you will get your ass kicked, because that's a Saturn conjunction to Jupiter. So your luck comes with the work that you're willing to put in. Where did you go, Sal?
I'm right here. I'm right here. I'm sorry.
When it comes to rituals to avoid at this time, I mean, I don't necessarily think that there's anything that you should avoid. You know, use your own judgment. I don't ever like to tell people what they should or shouldn't do. You know, feel good about what you want to do and then do it.
I'm definitely with you on that. I don't see anything that's going to stop. I mean, some people might see that, but I mean, from my background and my standards on things, I don't let anything get in the way of my will.
Yeah. So. And I mean, anything that like any art form that you any art form that you can engage with during this time as well will be good. It's good for starting new artistic journeys as well, like even outside of ritual and going into more of like how to work with this energy astrologically. Like if you're not being creative, you may end up feeling restricted. So like be okay with playing in those realms and getting experimental and getting weird. We have a question at the top that we missed about altars. What altars do you keep standing and which ones do you only keep up temporarily? All mine are temporary.
Are they saying altars are temporary, or is that your answer?
That's my answer. All mine are temporary.
Shrines are usually kept up all the time. A shrine is something that's definitely
not temporary, sorry, permanent. Mine are permanent.
I would say that in my home, my altar is always up. Mm-hmm. But you know, I don't, at this juncture, I don't hide anything from anyone. My wife and I are very practiced. So I don't take them down.
Yeah.
I like having them definitely accessible at all times.
Yeah, that's how mine are. I misspoke. I meant to say mine are all permanent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless I move, and then that's like that's one of the first things I set up is my altar. I feel so fucked. Like even when I go to visit my family at Christmas, like I find a way to like make some sort of like little altar space.
Yeah, I have to be that way. I can't. I don't know life without one. For sure.
I do, but it's better with.
Definitely important. Let's shoot to the next one. I would say it's at Chanel, actually. Chanel wants to know, hi Chanel. She wants to know, is there a best location for altars to Hikate? Is there a room that she prefers? That's a really good question. And I've never come across with a specific space, just a space dedicated. I tend to like altars that are, I've had them high up. I've had them low to the ground. Mm-hmm. I like altars that I can kneel at and then be level with. So I like them kind of lower, especially for Hakate, because I'm always on my knees when I'm working with her. But I don't think there's a specific room that is best. It's whatever you feel is best dedicated for your magical working. What works for you magically in what space? If you feel best doing work in this room, then that's where I would set it up.
Or where you get privacy.
Yeah, or maybe you want it to be where, say, it blesses the entire house, and this is where shrines come into play. Mm-hmm. Is this a place of working, or is this a place of dedication? If it's a shrine, then it's always great to have a shrine in a place where it'll be prevalent when you're in your daily life, because that way she'll always be there looking at you. So that's how I would verse it. Is if it's a place of dedication where you want to light some incense and a candle and it's small, then go for it.
I mean, I think that, yeah, I think that can like apply to as well, though, like if you work with different types of deities, like if you're not just working with one type of deity, you could put different deities in different rooms. Like Venus would be good. Like Venus shrines, I've always heard are good in the bedroom because it means you'll have like good intimate sex. I guess Mars would be good for that too. But also like taking it into like what it means to you and what you're trying to generate in what type of space.
Sure. There's another question. It's Christy. I use altar as storage for my tools and crystals, so not everything on there is an offering to my deity. Is this problematic, as I have to conceal my altar from my MIL? I'm not sure what that means.
Mother-in-law.
But mother-in-law. Oh, okay. No, okay.
Don't get busted by MIL.
I would say storage. I mean, storage under. But you're saying your crystals, but those crystals actually do have service to a deity. If you have one, then all things that are on the altar, she looks down at and looks over. So I would look at especially tools. And if you have a specific deity that you're working with, Christy, then they kind of, they having them look down upon your tools and your stones is a blessing. And so I don't see it as a problem. But as far as concealing goes, some people have to do that. Not everybody is lucky enough to have that space where they can do it. And, just know that when you set up, really put your dedication into setting it exactly right.
Yeah.
It can make you feel good about it. So when it comes down next time, remember, ritual is important, because what is ritual? It's repetitious movement that attaches to your psyche to allow so many of these things to actually work in your life. So it's ritual. It's done over and over. So create a ritual yourself of how you're placing these things in position if you have to take them down every time.
Yeah. I think that for my altar, I always put my tarot cards on it when I'm not working with them. Just because it feels like a good sacred space to house them when they're not in use. But I also have under both of my altars, there's storage underneath it where I can keep a bunch of herbs and candles and crystals and whatever else. So I also have a storage unit sort of thing going on with my altars.
That's definitely super important. I think you're all probably wondering why I'm so fidgety tonight. I'm actually setting up a little shrine so you guys can see basically what a shrine would do. That's why I keep stepping back. Give me 1 second.
Oh.
That's all I'm doing. And then I can show you a little bit about what's going on here.
Yeah, I can show some of my stuff too once you're done as well.
Yeah, just trying to get a little space going.
Do a little show and tell.
Yeah. I just thought it would be
I'll read one of the questions while you're doing that. Jose asked, does the gem Lapis Lazuli have any relation to Hakate?
Not directly that I'm aware of, but I mean, I would look at as all stones have connection to her because she is who she is to me. But specifically Lapis Lazuli, I'm not correlated to that. Obviously, when we think of Lapis Lazuli, we think of Egypt, which doesn't mean anything that people that work with Hakate can't, have an affinity for Egyptian work. But it's definitely an Egyptian stone. I mean, it's definitely, if you're working with Bast or you're working with, any of the Egyptian gods or goddesses, that's a great stone specifically. But when I think of Lapis Lazuli, I'm thinking of it as Jupiter and also as a solar stone because of the gold in it. That makes it so amazing, but not specifically to Hikate as far as I know. And I will look into that in the future and get back to you guys next week on that for sure. Edgar wants to know thoughts on setting up an altar in magical East versus actual East. I love that you asked that. So now, Edgar, I don't know if you're going to agree with me on what that means. We might have difference of opinion on what magical East is. Usually when I see that usually means what's East, how does East and West set up if you're standing in your room, which is East to you versus magnetic East or actual East. And I believe if that's what you're talking about, I believe that magical East would totally work. for sure. But I tend to not use, especially in witchcraft altars, that it's not east, it's usually north to northeast. It's the dividing line between north and east that I'm working on specifically. And usually if it's in a ritual circle, then the altar is in north to northeast, and it's usually just shy of center of the room, heading into north to northeast area. So when you're standing behind it, you are standing dead center of all of the 4 crossing elements, if that makes sense. That's how I see magical east. But if it is not, please share that with us so I know what you're talking about as well. Do you have any thoughts on that, Renee? Or
not really. I mean, do you ever move your altar away from the wall? Because I feel like having an altar in the center of the room is that's
in a temple,
right?
I
feel like they're against the wall.
Yeah, I mean, if they're against the wall, that's different, and this brings me up to a great thing to think about, that when you're using your athame and you're cutting circle, if your altar is up against the wall, remember that when you project energy through the athame, you should be seeing an electric blue flame scourging out through your arm, down through the blade and out. And that's why I teach my students to always have their arm at a 45-degree angle with their shoulder blade and the floor. And what you do is you push that blue energy through any object that's in its path to cut the circle, because the circle ring should always stretch out a little bit further than you can step. And then when you raise your cone of power, the cone connects right into the ring that you cut and creates a perfect space. And so it'll bypass any furniture. That's actually a really important thing to remember. So don't be set off by things being in the way when you're cutting circle. Cut right through them in your mind and use the blue light to do so.
Got it.
Christy wants to know, what if I repurpose a Halloween costume as ritual garb? I don't have a problem with that, as long as you name it so. If you say this from this point on is going to be for magical working only, I identify with it as this, that is totally fine. There's a lot of people older than myself in the craft that would say the only ones you should use should be something of a natural fiber. But I don't do that. I mean, my favorite ritual gown I've been wearing since 91, and it's a 4-way stretch velvet gown. That is just fucking rad. And back in the old days, I used to wear it to Helter Skelter in the goth clubs and dance my ass off to Christian Death in that thing. And now as I wear it, it has a cut. It's cut to goes all the way down to my pubic bone. And now what I do is I wear it backwards so you can see all my tattoo work when I'm in ritual, and I expose my ritual markings. So no, once you have it, dedicate it and consecrate it and bless it on your altar, that it is specifically magical working.
I love the next question.
Huh?
I love the next question. I want to
Can you work with angels and demons at the same time? Wow.
I think you totally can. Well, I think totally maybe separately, maybe separate.
It depends on what we're talking about here. Now we're stepping into Solomonic work. I mean, when people say angels and demons, to me, I'm going into Solomonic magic and some ceremonial magic. And usually, you're containing the demons with the demons or daemons in a specific environment within the ritual space so they can't step out of it. And the angels are always there for warding, especially archangels. So I would say, yeah, you can combine them. And because the archangels especially are going to be guardians.
Right. So they'll keep it, they'll help keep it contained.
Okay. Because I work with Lilith, but archangels have been reaching out to me. Well, first of all, again, this might be your version, and I do not want to disrespect your views. But for me, I don't see Lilith as a negative deity at all. I don't see her as demonic at all. I see that when you start thinking about Lilith from a demonic perspective, when I see that, all as I see is all the Christian bullshit that was laid upon her. Remember, she's very closely connected to Ishtar and working with the Babylonian systems. And I believe that Lilith is very much a beautiful, amazing goddess, and she's not demonic. She got stuck with that name, you know, the way a lot of people hear it now. And they, you know, she was thrown out of Eden for wanting to be on top. She was aggressive to Adam, which was not right in the eyes of God, blah, 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 this, blah. But remember, Lilith was around long before that. And she wasn't an evil. I don't see evil. I don't see evil in deities, especially. Gods are gods. Gods are, my goddess at times is way more wrathful than Lilith could ever be. She is like incredibly brimo.
She feels more intense to me.
Huh?
She feels more intense to me.
Yeah, but Lilith is great. She's great for sexuality. But remember, Lilith was a representation for women from a Christian perspective, purely. I'm not talking about all entirely, but from the Christian perspective, Lilith was a way of using it to repress women from not being dominant on their husbands.
Yeah, in astrology, there's an asteroid for Lilith, and it represents like your dark feminine side. Like it represents your like relentless fucking.
There's nothing wrong with that, though. I don't think that's negative. So I don't see her as a demon at all. At all. Yeah. She's a god. And a demon is not a deity. Deities and demons are completely different things. You know, they're usually daemons are lesser entities. They're spirit. They're beings without form.
Yeah, and if you're gonna
needing attention.
If you're gonna work with a demon, you have to really like
contain it.
Yeah, and like not allow yourself to be afraid of it. Like you have to be like I'm the fucking master here, because when people talk about demonic possession and shit, it's because they're feeding whatever energy, like their fear, and like that's like if you lose control of that situation, that's when like the mind tricks can fuck you. So like you really have to feel like you're the dominant one in that situation, and that, like you said, you're containing it.
You have to contain when you're working with demons, which is not Lilith. Demons are usually brought up in black glass, and they're within a consecrated triangle, and they're controlled, because the entire goal for a demon is to get out across that line so they can manifest within you or in your life. And when you keep them at bay within a triangle or a consecrated space that they can't cross over into, you have control of the situation. Mm-hmm. Leah Noble asks, is there anything specific I have to include on an altar to a deity? Yes, you should look for any of their herbs, any of their oils, their scents, their colors, anything from the region, their geographical region of the world that they come from. Lay it around. I mean, almonds, Hikate, Isis, pomp. Like when you look, Lapis Lazuli. If you're working with the Voodoo, palm oil, things like that. You want to have anything that's geographically connected to where they're from, and that's usually something used. And also colors, because remember, most deities that are out there I have certain books that I can go through and I can cross correlate to find out what planet, what color, what energy, what stone, what herb, what scent, what oil, what animal, what body part is governed by that deity. And so that's definitely important. And if you need help researching that, I can totally help you. Come to the store, reach out to me, and I will set you up. And I can also make you a custom incense and oil blend to match the deity that you work with.
I have a question here that was sent in advance. It says, I've heard you're not supposed to let other people touch your altar. Is this true? I mean, I think it depends on how you feel about your altar and how you feel about who it is that could be touching it. If it's someone that you are magically connected to and that you trust with your magical space, fine. Like, people are weird about letting other people touch their crystals and their tarot cards too. And for me, I'm not possessive of my cards or my crystals or even my altar. If I'm in the middle of a ritual, like if I'm in the middle of a spell, like if you can see that work's being done, don't fucking touch it. But other than that,
for sure. As far as your altar goes, and it's your personal altar. Obviously, my wife, my life partner, she can go on the altar whenever she wants. There's objects on here that are hers, but I kind of man it because I'm really into my altar. But I have no problem with her going up, touching it, using it. And as a matter of fact, I mean, again, this goes back to my no fear, no self-doubt, no guilt, things like that. I mean, you could touch my tarot cards, you can touch my stones, you can touch my thumb. I don't care. There's nothing you're going to do that I can't take care of.
Exactly.
That's not already protected. But I mean, at the same time, you don't want people coming in and resting a fucking beer on your altar. I'd break their fucking arm. There's just no way. Don't be disrespecting.
My friend visited and he put his drink on my altar and I was like, you need to move that right now. I was like, that's my fucking altar.
Yeah, and I'll tell you another thing, another short story, and I'm not naming names or anything like this, but I went away on with some people on a trip, and while we were on said trip, we went to a place with a shrine that was dedicated to Christianity, and it had an altar on it. And it was in this sacred place that was very, 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 very old in Europe. And now this is a Christian environment, and I'm a witch to the bone, okay? But somebody that I knew literally got up on the altar and sat in lotus position and tried to be at one with herself, and then posed for a selfie on top of it. Now, not even including the selfie, that is absolutely terrible. And I reamed the person in front of everyone. I was like a parent. I don't care if it's not my system to work in, but that's respect. That's somebody's space of respect, and you don't disrespect another person's space, regardless of what spiritual background you're from. Because I'm a witch and that was a Christian altar, it deserves as much respect as any altar I've ever created. And so you should always respect other people's sacred spaces. That is super important. So we got more coming in. Somebody wants to Jose wants to know what demons work under Lilith. Hellhounds. Daemons, as far as working under Lilith, I'm gonna have to research that. I don't know offhand, but hellhounds, that term is probably loosely connected to Cerberus. What did you say? Who?
Sorry, voodoo is
Cerberus, and Cerberus, some people say Kerberos, or the three-headed hound of Hades. And that is definitely, remember that Cerberus was the hound that stopped people from entering into the underworld to Hades. And Hikate definitely works with Cerberus, and they're definitely guardians. I wouldn't say they're demons. They're definitely a guardian, but definitely it's definitely Greek, and definitely Hikate works with them. Lilith, I don't know, and I will research that for you and find out if you want me to. 773. Any reliable sources to look up more information on deities? There are tons of information on Greek and Egyptian pantheons, but not much on the Norse. Yes, there is some great ones. One of the best books that you can get on all this kind of information is 777 by Aleister Crowley, because it's got a cross correlation with multiple pantheons, from Babylonian to Christian to Norse to the Voodoo to Santeria to all the European deities. I mean, it crosses over Egyptian, everything. It will cross correlate. So I would say definitely go to that. There's also a great couple of books out by Janet Stewart Farrar called The Witch's God and the Witch's Goddess. And they talk about all the pantheons and the correlations to each of them. And Norse is included. So I would definitely check that out. Corey asked, I have no space for an altar. So my idea of an offering is lighting the candle and spending time with them. I do school, divination, writing, etc. Yeah, then that's totally fine. That's going to give you a place of being. If that's going to help you commune with the deity that you work with, then of course.
Yeah.
I think that's a great thing. I mean, simplicity, remember. It doesn't ever have to always be. I mean, it's great to have, but if you don't, then,
Yeah, I have on my shrine Well, I usually keep an altar ring and I keep a candle lit. I'll usually have, I put on one of my specific shrines, I put like a little shot glass of vodka, like I fill it with vodka.
That's great.
And then I always light a candle as well. But like my shrines, I always got pretty much every day there's a candle lit on it, but I keep an offering and a candle. But I do think it's good to like light a candle before you're about to do something that isn't watching TV, like working on school or doing, you know, practicing your divination or writing. Like I think anything that's going to have you generate energy versus like watching TV. Like whenever I have a spell, you know, on the burner, whenever I've got, you know, a ritual that's in the middle of, you know, unfolding, I usually won't watch TV. I'll like make sure that I'm being active in another type of way, because I want to make sure that like my mind and my emotions are, you know, generating movement.
That's great. Like for me, I mean, every night when I go to bed, I light a tea light. I've not missed one day in 4 years. And even when I travel, like when I went on vacation with my wife for my birthday, I brought that with me. So I always light one tea light every single night, and it's been going for 4 years straight.
And you just let it burn out, because tea lights are.
And it burns out. Yeah. And it's in a red glass votive, and I never miss a night. And when I do that every night, my jewelry goes around it and consecrates it. That's the little shrine image that I was showing you. Oh, you guys want? I'll show you a shrine in the store. Let me see. Boom. This is a very typical shrine. So
yeah.
So as you see, I've got 3 candles here. Now this doesn't really correlate specifically to the way the system I was discussing to you earlier. I use these 3 colors because they represent the 3 worlds that I work with Hakate, and I'd rather not go into that right now. Of the 3 realms. And as you can see, there's a shrine to her. And whenever this is really crazy, but whenever we break stones that we sell at the store, I pick usually 1 or 2 from each bundle, and I stack them in this dish, and they're offered to her as well. So that's it. There's constant offerings there. If you really zoomed in and went in deeper in there, you would see so much different stuff floating around in that. There's prayer beads in there from Greece. That mint canister has a spell in it. There's just snake skin, lizard skin, specific stones of different vibrancy, different colors, keys, incantations, little notes. I write a lot of notes on bay leaf and give them to her.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a shrine. It's always there. It's always filling up that space.
So here's mine behind me.
That's beautiful.
So Bowie is one of my people, and I treat Bowie like a god. I do.
Yeah, I think he's very transcendental. He is like a god. Him and Prince are gods.
He hangs out. But then down here, I have my Palo Santo, I have my selenite wand. I have an offering of vodka and a cigarette and more candles, like if I need them. And just like incense and like things that if I want to do a little meditation, like if I want to do a quick like cleanse my energy, I come here and I show my respects, but then I sort of like drop off what I don't need, and I try to pull in what I'm wanting to gain from the other side. So like all my like cleansing shit is right here on this shelf, but up here is like where I present crystals and candles, and sort of like this is where my focus goes when I'm having a moment.
Beautiful. And like that's important. This is also like your sacred dead. Now, just like she was showing you, now this is an extension again. So you got the shrine to Hikate, right? And then you've got it's always right there. Mm-hmm. And above him, and right to the left of him, right there is the goddess Asclepius. I got that from Greece, so it helped me make herbal mixtures.
Yeah.
And want me to show? I'll show you a couple more little ones. So here, I'm going to start traveling around with you guys. So bear with me. I'm going to turn on the house lights because I am still in the store. Mm-hmm. So right down here, first thing you see when you come in the shop is Ogun. So Ogun is on my head. He's one of the Vudan, and he's equated to Mars in the system that I was crowned with him under. And directly under Ogun, see that pot? That's what Ogun is, the pot. It's iron, anything iron, because iron is the blood. If you go down below, you have Papa Legba, or in Santeria, this is called Elehua. And this, he is basically Mercury in the cross correlative. And this in here are his Veve, and the Veve is on a specific bottle next to some other bottles of rum and things that you see in there. And we want Legba because Legba communicates to the gods for me. He's like a telephone to my god. And if you work with any of the Vudan, you go through Legba first because he's communication and Mercury. And then I'll take you one more spot. Let me say, oh yeah, this is the Altar of Khaleesi. Here, so we'll go upstairs. As you can see, there is a salt circle. This is the temple. These are the guardians that are being on the temple. These are the three fates, Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos, drawn by Scarlet Perry. And Stephen is doing the guardians in the four corners. This is a working altar to Hikate, and this is her here as well. And on it, this is not traditionally set up because I did some spell work recently, but you'll see Hikate there, and you'll see some patterns. And this is a sigil of protection that we use as well. And this is actually, that's a real human head. And that's for ancestry, like we discussed before. And the central statue of Hikate as well. And that's always that's her chalice. So she always has her chalice there. And we have little offering cups and bowls that she gets fed regularly with.
Yeah, I always have, so in like contrast to my shrine, this is like what I use as my just like throw something on the burner altar. I have my altar that's like where I put shit together. So this is my altar where I'll actually burn stuff. And it's totally like a storage.
That's beautiful.
Like this is incense in here. Like I've got herbs down here and other shit down here. Right now there's not really a rhyme or reason to it. Like I just have random stuff on it, but no matter what, there's always something in this offering bowl. Because I feel like even if I'm not doing work on that day, even if I'm not casting on that day, I'm always talking to and I'm always working with my deities or my energies on the other side. And so I feel like the offering helps not only show respect, but I feel like it energizes them in some ways. So it's like I'm, you know, if I'm going to ask for something, I'm going to give you the fuel to get it done. I'm going to show you the respect that like I'm also, it's like twofold for me. Like I'm respecting you, but I'm also like giving you energy to generate the magic with. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Totally does. That's beautiful. Your setup is great, by the way. I love them.
Yeah, I've got very two impressive. More, but my room's too messy. I'm embarrassed to like.
Very
One of my altars is like a mess. I never put away all the shit that I used in the last spell that I cast. So it's just like.
I know, you can see it. There's a salt circle still on the floor up there from a working I had to do that was pretty aggressive recently.
Yeah.
But yeah, Renee, you're really impressing me. This is really badass. Oh, one other little thing, you know what I should show you? And I know we're starting to crunch on time, but this is one of those times when we're running a little bit more because we've got a lot to talk about. And so I want to show you one other one that's really important, just so you all know, everybody knows it's here and ask what it's for. This is Thihi. Thihi is the Greek version of what we know in Italian as Fortuna or fortune. So when you see her, she's got the cornucopia and there's money. So when you come into the shop, we collect about $300 to $400 at a time on that podium from people. They put whatever they want to put down. And then when we collect up to $400 or whatever we decide to collect after it starts to overflow, if it's $400, we match it with $400 and then it goes to an animal shelter. So it's important, you know, to make those kind of things happen.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
To give it back, you know. And so if you ever do come in the store and see that, that's where that money is going. And it's important that we remember those type of things, you know. Animals are important to all of us.
What I usually do is once a month I'll donate, depending on where I'm at, $25 to $50 to a charity. But then I like prompt people to match me, and if they match me, that they made a charitable donation, I'll do like a mini tarot spread for free. So I try to like
so rad.
Give services when I can't afford to give money. Hey, if anyone watching makes a donation of $25 or more to a charitable cause, I'll do a little mini reading for you.
That's so cool. This is a really great episode tonight. This is probably my favorite one.
I'm really excited to do it.
Huh?
I was really excited to do it and get into it.
Yeah, I love talking about this stuff, and you know, I want to be able to give people answers. Remember, just remember, when it comes to these things, you know, whatever works is fine. I'm not here to tell you what is wrong or right specifically, but you know, just as a whole, the altar is a workspace. That's why the one upstairs that I just showed you, the triangle, stuff's moving on there constantly. The shrine is more like the first one I showed you. That is a constant place of dedication. So whenever I'm doing work with clients, I even have specific little blades that are here. Like one of my favorite little ones on the side is this one. Like this sits with my gear. This thing is just smoking hot. And it was made by a man named Jody Sampson, and he created the original Conan the Barbarian sword for the movie back in the 80s.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. And I bought this from him, and then he died not long after. But yeah, so this is what I use whenever I consecrate bags or stuff like that for people in the store. I open up the shrine, do work, color in, and I use this. But you know, so just, you know, have a place of dedication, but don't stress. If you're putting forth effort is what matters. It's great if you have this stuff, if you want to know more. You know, if you ever want this, I will post some more stuff up of a list of things, and maybe it will help people generate that. Also, if you're ever in the area and you come by the store, I can walk you through and show you budgeted ways of doing this for sure. Awesome. For sure. So what's next week holding for us?
I think we were talking about Yule.
Yule. Okay. You mean the historical perspectives on it, or?
Probably both, historical and modern ways to celebrate, things to. I have the schedule right here. Hold on. Let me see.
Yeah, tell us about some upcoming shows before we check out of here.
Yeah, so it looks like the next episode is going to be on Solstice, the Solstice and Yule. So we can talk a little bit more about the conjunction then as well. We will have an episode on numerology, especially with the new year coming up. Every year, the numerological affiliations with the year change, and also your personal relationship to basically like your number for that year will change, and we'll have to explain that more. Eventually we want to get into enchanting items, charging, talismans, and amulets. We also have something coming up about past life regression. We've got sex magic and love magic stuff coming up in February. So we're going to keep rolling with some pretty cool topics, I think.
Yeah, and I think that now's a really great time to tell everybody out there, you have topics that you want us to discuss on nightly, like weekly, throw us a couple topics and maybe we can add and switch them around and give you your answers. If I get enough people asking, we can move things around and we can answer stuff for you guys.
Yeah, I think tonight we were originally going to do past life regression, and then we didn't have time to regress. So we changed it to altars and shrines. So we are pretty fluid with like what we're scheduling.
As fluid as the dress that I'm wearing. So So, yeah. So in future, we will be doing regressions, but I probably think that'll be after the new year because we really have to schedule time for that. And we need to get through this year first. And then we'll attach that where we can actually be in rooms together and do that.
Yeah, exactly.
But I guess we're about done.
Yeah, we're pretty much, there was one last question.
Okay.
Thanks for the 777 recommendation, but I heard Crowley is really hard to read. Tips to help understand his style of writing better? ?
Excellent question. And here's my end tip for the world this evening. Hang on 1 second. I'll be right there.
We'll see.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, because who sent that to us?
Seeker 773.
All right, 773. I love your questions. 777 by Aleister Crowley, one of the hardest fucking books to read in the world. I've been doing this since 1991. I've had this book since 1983, and I still have not read all of it. I do not try to put my head in the gematria world. I'm still not ready for it in my 30 odd years of this. Gematria is magic through numbers. So the correlative is great, but you're very right, 773. This is a very hard book to read. So ladies and gentlemen, may I please introduce to you the best tip I can give you. Let's do the cinema like on good cinema. There's your book, ready? Boom. Ladies and gentlemen, 776.5. This is a book by a man named James Eschliman. You can find this book for sale on Amazon.com. Now, with that, it has amazing rituals in the back of it, but it also has the correlatives that we're talking about. So I'm going to show you really quickly the deities. Look how big the words are. It's easier to read. And see that number column on this area right here? If you follow that number across the entire book, that is the correlation to that deity and in every way. So if I'm looking at, for instance, let's say, no, that's too easy. Let's say we're going to do Aphrodite. She is number 7. Okay, well, Aphrodite in the Roman, if you follow that 7 across the line, what do you see? She's Venus. Now, if you go further and you say, well, I need to know what her incense is. So now you look for incenses right there, follow number 7, and it will be rose, red sandalwood, benzoin, amber, and civet. So with that, very easy to read. Buy this book. Hardcover is about 35 or 40 bucks. It is the single best book that you can buy. Swear to the gods. 776.5, James Eschliman. And if I'm going to hold this up tight so you can see his name.
Eschelman.
James Eschliman. He ran an OTO lodge in Los Angeles, California. And it is a great book. With that, that is my tip for you, 773. You will thank me over and over once you get this hot book in your hands. Easy to get, Amazon.com. You guys, thank you so much for an amazing extended evening. Thank you guys for the Shadow Crew and my awesome, beautiful co-host Renee.
Thank you.
And your gothic lipstick.
I was like, I'm gonna go black lipstick tonight.
I've got no makeup on today, so I'm totally not there. But we love you guys. Stay safe. Love each other. Let's get through it. We got a new year coming, and January 20th is going to be really great. We all know why that's going to be.
Yeah.
But with that, I am Renee. I'm not Renee. You're Renee. Say hi. Bye, Renee.
Bye.
I'm Sal, and we are out of here.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.